Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to At Center Stage. For more than 70 years, the Culinary Institute of America has provided a transformative learning experience for leaders, innovators, and experts within the food service industry. To share more about CIA's vision and plans to prepare the hospitality workforce of the future, please welcome back NAFEM's Executive Vice President, Deirdre Flynn, and CIA President Michiel Bakker.
Michael, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
We're delighted to have you with us, and congratulations on taking the reins at the Culinary Institute of America. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your food service and hospitality journal to get everybody familiar with you?
Yeah, maybe like so many in this amazing industry, my journey is both very traditional and probably somewhat non-traditional. So from a very young age, I knew I was destined for the hotel industry. So I went to a hotel college in the Netherlands. And then I would say life happened. I actually got to marry my high school sweetheart, moved to upstate New York, got married over here. And then I started my career in the hotel industry. So I started over here in Atlanta, the city I so dearly love, at the Westin Peachtree. And then I worked with Westin in a variety of sites all over the United States to join their new builds team for food and beverage. So in that role, I got to open a great number of hotels, 4-star in the United States, Canada, and the Caribbean, because my team and I were responsible for food and beverage development for all our new hotels. Following that, I got the opportunity to spend 2 years with Starwood, leading food and beverage in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And I absolutely loved it. This is a great industry. A year into my time in Brussels, I got a call from Google, whether I was interested in having a conversation with them about a new role to lead Google's Global Food at Work program. I had heard of Google, never heard of that program. Turns out that Google as the employer offers a wide variety of really interesting benefits and perks to its workforce, including amazing free food at work all over the world. So in 2012, I left the hotel industry to join this intersection of technology and food service. And I got to lead and build out this amazing food at work organization. And if you think about it, by the time we were in 2023, we got to serve over 250,000 people per day in close to 400 restaurants in 60 countries around the world. So for a tech organization, that is no small potatoes.
Absolutely.
So I did that for 12 years, and then the opportunity came along to ultimately to put my hat in the ring for the role of president at the CIA. Love the industry, love just being able to be part of a learning environment, and as they would say, the rest is history.
That's great. You know, for those of you who don't know, NAFEM is headquartered in Chicago, and Google is moving in across the street from our offices. We were very excited to hear that because of the quality and the reputation of Google Food Service, too. So yeah. Glad to know that you had a hand in that. So what excited you about stepping away from something as vast and growing as Google to enter the world of academia?
So I am a lifelong learner. I love the hospitality industry. I love the food and beverage industry. So after 12 years at Google, it felt to me that my learning curve was ultimately flattening down. And now to get the opportunity to bring together hospitality, food, technology, and ultimately learn a little bit more yourself as well. What is it like to lead a learning organization? It is almost the perfect role for me.
As you set the strategic vision for CIA, share with us how you can take the lead in developing and nurturing our industry's workforce.
Yeah. So the CIA is an amazing organization. So 78 years old. We started in 1946 in New Haven, Connecticut. And we were a school for returning GIs to learn ultimately the culinary profession so they could ultimately go back to work after the Second World War. That organization has ultimately learned and evolved over the years as well, from being originally a culinary trade school to what we are now today, which is a great culinary college. And I now get to work with the leadership team, with faculty and staff, to think about the next chapter. And for me, I always like to start with the end in mind. So imagine it is New Year's Eve 2035. What is it that we want to have done or accomplished 10 years from now? And for me, it's really to think through what are the evolving needs of the industry, what are the evolving needs of ultimately our student force, and ultimately where can you find those and where can you bring them together? So as I like to dream, and it's easy to dream about the future, I think about this following. As of today, we describe ourselves as a great college, but we're ultimately in the education, learning, and development business. And if you think about ultimately what is happening in the United States, fewer kids are graduating from high school. That is one. The food industry, the hospitality industry, continues to grow and to evolve. Why would you only limit yourself to focus on the traditional student? Now you get the what ifs. What if you ultimately redefine yourself as a global education, learning, and development organization that specializes in culinary, food, beverage, and hospitality education? With just that statement, a whole new world opens up for you, because you can continue to build upon the college business, but now you can get into workforce development as well. And workforce development for us as of today, with all the disclaimers, we're just thinking about the future, haven't really decided yet what to get involved with. But there are 4 really new interesting ultimately opportunities. The first one is, how might an organization like ours partner with restaurant companies, hotel companies, cruise line organizations to help them to train, support, and evolve their culinary and food and beverage workforce? The second one is, all us industry professionals, we all start somewhere at the bottom and we work our way up from a line associate to a supervisor, middle manager, and hopefully a senior leader over the time. Many of us would like to continue to learn about ultimately a subject, a technology, or what more. So how can you ultimately be a lifelong partner for people in the industry? The third one, how might we be able to support the instructors, the teachers, those who are teaching us the beautiful world of culinary or food and beverage at high schools, at community colleges or other colleges as well? What role can our organization play to support those individuals as well? And then last but not least, what can we do with great industry partners like you, the NRA and others, to really tell the story of how great this industry is for so many reasons. It has room for everybody. You can ultimately do whatever you want to do. It is one of the most inclusive, one of the most rewarding industries. And the more we can work together to really tell the stories of individuals that ultimately have found their niche and really have made it a lifelong career, the more individuals will ultimately get into our industry and stay in it. But going back to, if you change your definition of, we're an amazing college, but we could be an education, learning, and development organization, and your specialization is culinary, food, and beverage, New Year's Eve 2035 is going to be a party. There's going to be a lot to celebrate.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think what you focused on is very true. We have a tendency to shrink the perspective of the industry and what somebody coming into the industry or thinking of a career in hospitality really can accomplish. It's a broad spectrum of opportunities. It's a broad, you can be a culinarian, you can be an IT professional, you can be in administration and management. There's so many opportunities that get covered with hospitality, and it's that learning environment. So when you're giving insight to students who are considering a food service industry career, are you experience any trends related to those needs that they have? And what should the industry be prepared for in terms of the talents that you're trying to bestow upon them so that as they enter the workforce?
Yeah. So I
makes sense.
think the way you asked the question to me, it is probably the traditional student, the high school graduate, or an individual who has worked for a couple of years and goes to college. I will speak to that. But I would say there are so many more students who are new to the industry. Like one part of the population we don't talk about are ultimately the elderly who are semi-retired and who would like to find meaningful work as well. Those type of students' entrance into the industry have very different needs. But from the traditional high school graduate, I think a number of things have truly changed, whether it's as a result of the pandemic, whether it's as a result of it being the truly digital population as well. So I think the first one is they probably have a very different mindset and commitment to how many hours they would like to work, what they expect of the employer, and how quickly they want to move up. And I think as the more senior leaders, and we would like to say we've paid our dues and the next generation has to do the same, while you might think that, it is very likely not going to work out really well for you as ultimately the employer, because the younger generation just has very different requirements, very different expectations, and if you don't provide that, it ain't gonna work. I think the newer generation is much more focused on balance, on mental health, and what you as an employer are going to do as well. Your stance on sustainability, your stance on ultimately how inclusive you are, your purpose, the values that you have, and your perspective on what you're going to do for them to help them grow and evolve. So while that group has changed, I think as an industry we have to go back as well and ultimately the middle managers in the industry and to think through how can we help that group to become different and probably more impactful trainers as well for the next generation.
It's true. I mean, so a student will have a certain perspective on what they hope to accomplish as they advance their education. What can industry do to better adapt a changing workforce?
I think it's first and foremost to really listen and to really say from what is it that we can do collectively. So is it truly true that you have to pay your dues and that you really have to follow the traditional path, 6 months in this role, 6 months in that role? So you have that. I think the second one is flexibility. Do you really have to work 5 days a week and then your 8 hours or whatever that might be? Or can you become more flexible as well if that's what ultimately the next generation expects of you? I think the third one is how might you adapt the way you train to ultimately a generation that grew up with their phone. And for us to think, great news for all of you, you're going to be in a meeting room for the next 5 days to be spoken at and basically to be told of what it is versus we're going to give you a short video, so you're going to actually do it in the class or actually in the kitchen and much more experiential. I think there are some really quick things that the industry can do if they truly embrace the mindset is the world has permanently changed. Right. We're not going back to what it was before.
Right. Now you have 3 campuses in the US and 1 campus in Singapore, correct? How are you moving this vision across all campuses without losing the uniqueness of each of the campuses that CIA manages?
So I would say that is a journey. Because what you have, there's an incredible body of faculty members who've come from the industry and who have grown up in our organization as well. So as we now think about our next 10 years, the question is, should we be in more places than where we are as of today? And if you think about growth, how can you ultimately create unique elements for each of the campuses that might either speak to the faculty you have over there or the physical location? So for example, in San Antonio, its proximity to ultimately Central America. It is clear that from a cuisine perspective, if you want to do something about the cuisines of the Americas, San Antonio will be very logical.
Sure.
If you think about our campuses in California, where you're literally in the state that produces so much of our food, getting closer to where food is coming from. California might be that. If you think about the culinary arts and read about the craft, we might have plenty of opportunities in Hyde Park. But now you have to think about the world as well, because as the world continues to evolve, what might you potentially do in other countries or in different parts of the US? Where I think we have growth opportunities is to really to think about food and design, food and media, food and technology, food and automation. There are a number of elements for which I still believe you need to have a core culinary education, but based on that core foundation, there are so many different career paths in which we can play a role. And then last but not least, it is interesting to think through, are there opportunities for us to play a lifelong role for our alumni? And if the answer is yes, maybe it's not just about physical locations, you might actually go into the digital space as well, and maybe we have smaller venues as well in the US to be closer to our alumni, or where really interesting things are happening in the industry.
So it's been about 10 months that you've been at the CIA now. What has been your favorite part of what you've done? I'm sure there's no typical day, but...
So, I think it's a variety of things. So first and foremost, it is about the food. It is about the deliciousness of all the great stuff that you get the experience on the daily basis. The second one, the students. What I didn't realize during my interview process of how much energy I would get from ultimately being around 2,000 students in Hyde Park, or actually 3,000 all over our ecosystem, and the broader community. Food is fun. Food is just what brings us together, and ultimately to get to lead a school that has such a strong legacy, such a strong alumni network, such great industry partners. All of that combined, it is probably one of the most rewarding communities to be a part of, and then to think through what more can we do in order to create more opportunities for faculty, to create more opportunities for our staff, to do more for ultimately our students and the alumni, and just as importantly, to support the industry. Because I think this industry has evolved so much as a result of COVID. The transitory inflation that was actually a little less transitory than we probably hoped. And just to think through, people are looking for more authentic food experiences, but the cost of providing that is becoming more and more challenging. But there must be new and alternative ways, while continuing to find a balance between ultimately the traditions, the cultures, and at the same time innovation. And I think there's this interesting juxtaposition in our industry, is we are an industry that has always evolved and always innovated, and at the same time we need to continue to embrace our traditions and our cultures.
So let's talk a little bit about current situation with the cost of food escalating and cost of technology escalating. How is that impacting how you're training, how you're teaching?
So I think we are at this pivotal period of time where we're going to explore over the next couple of years. Are there additional ways in which you can train? So what I'm going to say next is I don't know what I don't know, so it might make no sense. But I think that sometimes you can learn from other industries. So clearly we have good relationships with other culinary schools, and we learn from them, and we jointly explore of how to ultimately train the next generation. But I think there are other industries like the nursing schools. That is a not so scalable model as well. And therefore to go around the broader educational industry and to think through what might you learn from other industries of how they deal with that as well. The third one is, and it might be blasphemy, but there must be more that you can do with training chefs with augmented reality and virtual reality. And obviously that doesn't help you with tasting it, but ultimately from a skill development perspective, I think that is absolutely what you can do in different ways as well. And I think that what I might bring to our joint table is a little bit of, I do believe, because I've seen that at Google, is that you were taught to think really, really bold and to say, well, let's think of what is almost impossible, and you start with that, you can make it work, and bring that to our environment as well. And then obviously being at the show over here, it's fascinating to walk around over here and to see how quickly the equipment is changing and how you now get this interesting intersection between automation, AI, and the craft of ultimately the culinarians, because it's not just about the technology.
I'm glad you brought that up, brought augmented and virtual reality up, because my next question was going to be, how does AI play a role in all of this as well? From a training perspective, from workforce development, from a supporting perspective, and talk a little bit about, it was right before COVID, I believe, that, or right before the pandemic started, I believe, that CIA launched its hospitality program, because before it had been specifically culinary training in comparison. So that broadens the opportunity as well. So
what I always say, words matter. And I think it's so interesting as when you ultimately are leading a school that is named the Culinary Institute of America. And I would say culinary is either, you can see it as the umbrella brand, and if you're a chef, I might say everything is included in that. But I grew up in the front of house, and I would say culinary is part of food and beverage, and hospitality is part of that as well. And then you have the business of hospitality as well. So as of today, the CIA offers culinary programs, culinary arts, and culinary sciences. We have amazing baking and pastry programs. We have a hospitality program, beverage, and now we have a variety of master's programs as well, including our newest one, our master's program in culinary therapeutics. And then what we did earlier this year, we ultimately took over the Hospitality Academy from one of our partners in San Antonio. But what is really, really clear to me when we talk about hospitality, it is hospitality through the lens of food and beverage. So I want us to be the best in the world of culinary, food, beverage, and hospitality education. I don't want us to become a great hospitality school that does food and beverage. So there are these nuances that are very, very clear in my mind, that as terms mean different things to individuals. I always find it worthwhile to explain that. And now when I think about our future, so it's both the college, but for example, the Hospitality Academy in San Antonio is really focused on entry-level roles. A server who's getting started, a greeter who wants to learn what does it take to be a great greeter. And that might be a day program, it might be a 5-day program, it might be a month-long program. Because from an education perspective, it cannot just be where it's just about, we started with an associate's degree, and now the new norm is bachelor's, and next up is going to be master's, and before you know it's a doctorate. I think it's the diversity of offerings to offer to the diversity of individuals who are in the industry or would like to get into the industry.
So for companies that are interested in working with you to develop a workforce or have specific needs that they know the Culinary Institute can provide to them, what are your recommendations on how they can get engaged?
Call me. Yeah, email me. It's like, there are so many opportunities, and it's really, we want to be a partner. So this is not where we believe we have the solutions. I think what we bring to the table is an extraordinary collection of industry professionals who are literally giving their life to train and support the present and the next generation of culinarians and food and beverage professionals. And we want to do this together, because the more successful the industry is, the more students might be interested in coming to our college, the more we can help the industry, the more we can earn so we can support the broader industry. It is about being better together.
Right. Do we have some questions from our audience? For Michael? So, as I understand it, one of the CIA-trained chefs is competing in the U.S. Culinary Open here at the show.
That's tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning.
Very talented chef, Lance, and I think he's going to do well.
That's great. And NAFEM is very happy to have 4 students from the Culinary Institute helping us with our programs in baking and pastry, in the culinary science program. So we are ever grateful for the relationship that NAFEM has with the CIA as well.
And I think I and our team is extraordinarily grateful for both what you continue to do for us and the broader industry. So just walking around this morning already, I'm going to be the whole day and tomorrow. It's the number of industry partners that are just eager and willing to help an organization like ours to equip our kitchens and restaurants so we can jointly really support the next generation.
Absolutely.
It's very rewarding. It's, that doesn't happen in every industry.
It doesn't happen in any industry. And I think what you know is we anticipated that 20 to 23 was going to be the greatest transition for our industry. As people were looking towards retirement, leadership was changing over at companies across the spectrum of hospitality companies. And the pandemic changed all that. And some people got out quickly and said, I'm not going through another challenge like this. And others waited to help guide and help the next generation that was coming into leadership positions, help them navigate through those awful years in comparison. So workforce development we're seeing the greatest transition of people into leadership roles overall. So training and what we can do from providing resources and background and support to those coming through the ranks is incredibly important, and academic institutions play a huge role in that.
Yeah. Now, when I think about our joint future, people need to eat, people love to eat, people like to be around chefs. So I think golden ages are just ahead of us.
Exactly. So what's next for you? What's the next thing that you want to tackle in your new role?
So it is really helping our workforce to be ready for ultimately the broader impact I hope we can make by being an amazing college that will morph into a food and beverage university, and then really building out as well the additional areas in where we can make a difference: professional development, continuing education, workforce development, and being the partner and supporter for the trainers and the educators.
That's great.
That is really what excites me.
Excellent. Any questions?
Hello, Michael.
Good morning, Ken.
Nice to see you again. I have a general question for you. What do you think about the future of our industry? Technology changing, AI, labor force, rising food costs, and so on. What do you think about our industry 5 years, 10 years from now?
I think we will be bigger, very different, but it will be not easy to get from where we are today into the future. I think quite often when you're in it, it feels like it is overwhelming and it's the first time it's happening. But when you look through history, we've been through so many, many more challenging times than we are today. And I think we just need to continue to take it one day at a time and to continue to ultimately help the next generation to see what we all saw when we grew up as well, and to continue to think about 30 years ago, we didn't have computers. Nowadays, we love using them, and that therefore the things that are new to us today, whether that will be automation or AI, 5, 10 years from now, we're going to look back to this period of time and say, why didn't we embrace it earlier and quicker? But when you're in this messy transition period, it's just hard.
Other questions for Michael? Michael, we appreciate you being with us today and hope you enjoy the rest of the show. And thank you to all of you for listening in.
Thank you.